Hello, everyone. This is Poonam Sagar at Indoindians.com. And today we are really pleased to talk about the extraordinary women in Indonesia. Indian women living in Indonesia doing extraordinary things and making a positive impact on the community around them, on people around them, and touching people in various ways that can be really far-reaching. And our extraordinary woman is Bunbun Guharoy. Bunbun, as many of us know, and we have all been touched by her in some way or the other. And today we have with us her daughter Pavani. Yeah, so today I have with me Sachin Gopalan. Sachin is our partner in the awards process, and we'd like to really welcome Pavani. Pavani is Bunbun's daughter. Hi, Pavani, welcome.
Thank you so much. How are you?
Very well. I know it's you're so far away and yet so close here, and it's so lovely to see you, and we can see such a huge reflection of Bunbun in you. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
So as we were just talking when we joined this call, Sachin mentioned to you that Bunbun used to be the principal of the school where his children went. So Bunbun has touched so many lives. So Pavani, what did you think when we told you that she had won the Extraordinary Women's Award for a lifetime achievement?
So it made me thrilled. I want to say before anything, as I said to you before, when we were talking, is that I think the Indo-Indians' effort is so incredible because the Indian community in Indonesia is so strong. The women in the community are such an important part of, what we do to bring the community together. And I feel like Indo-Indians has really consistently, with videos and content, especially on social media, really, not just for people who have lived here, but as people come to Jakarta, I think Indo-Indians is such a resource for new Indians coming into the community. So thank you for that. The award is amazing because I think, even though my mother came to Jakarta when in her 40s, I think she was in her 40s when she came to Jakarta, it really became the strongest part of her life. She's lived here for 30 years, and a couple of times my dad wanted to move back to India, and my mom was like, no way, this is where her community was. This is where her family really is. My brother and I lived away from Jakarta pretty much ever since my parents moved to Jakarta, and the community really, I think she poured into the community, and the community manyfold gave back to her. Many of the people watching will have come to my wedding, and my wedding was really in Bali in 2009, was really an example. It was a community wedding. All her friends came together to do something or the other. And it felt like I was being married off by the entire community in Jakarta. So I'm really grateful for the award. I know my mom is watching and feels very honored. Thank you.
That's so lovely. It's like the whole village was there for you, Pavani.
Absolutely. It really was like a whole village, like from the dance routines to the little bazaar, to the pandit, everything was organized by the community. So, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Bunbun's charitable works?
Sure. One of I would say the most important lesson and the most important sort of passing on that I have from my mother is the idea of finding small ways to help people and not talking much about it. She would always say, you don't have to wait for, anniversaries and birthdays and big occasions to try and help people. You don't have to wait for Diwali and Eid. You have to, if you keep your eyes open, ways to help people will jump into your vision. And you just have to be willing to do small things, whether it's buying a small meal for someone or whether it's, finding another bigger way to help them that involves bringing more people into the effort. And I think at the root of it is kindness and wanting to help people regardless of who they are. A small example I'll share is My nani passed away in Delhi, and right after my nani passed away, my grandmother passed away, my grandfather went into hospital. And one day this is all in Delhi, and my mother and I were in Delhi. We were taking food for my grandfather in the hospital. And when we parked the car, under the tree was this man who was just sitting and crying because he was so exhausted. His wife was in the hospital. She had a young child. And there were lots of people around him. But my mom, with having just lost her mother, with her father in hospital, walked up to him and asked him what he needed. And he said, I don't have a lot of, I don't have a lot of support because, I mean, I have money for treatment, but I'm watching my child and I don't, how to feed my wife in the hospital because the food isn't very good. For the entire time that my grandfather was in hospital, which was the same time that this man's wife was in hospital, my mother organized 2 sets of food. And
that's okay. I think it's just the way she was. Her kitchen was always open. She was always sharing what she had. Even her little kitchen garden was an example of how.
Yeah, and I just feel like, there's people share education, people share wealth, but kindness is like the most universal thing that you can share. Throughout her illness, she was sick for 8 years. She was diagnosed in 2013. But even through her illness, she never focused on herself. I think there is something to be said for taking some time for yourself and looking after yourself. But I remember one day we were checking out of Pondakinda Hospital, and it was during Ramzan. And there were all these bottles of water in the room that, would not have really been used because we were not using it. And even while she was checking out, she's like, I want you to pick up all those bottles of water because once I get home, we're going to be donating food for Ramzan. I want to give those bottles of water. So even amidst her treatment, she was thinking about how she could do little things, whatever was in her capacity. And I think that's really the key to giving is everybody can do something. You have to keep your eyes open. You have to keep your heart open, and you have to do what is in your capacity. Because no one person, I think the real lesson from my mom is no one person can change the world, but you can do whatever little bit you can do in your capacity, and people will join you. You will find good, open-hearted people who will join you and make your effort bigger and stronger. And I think she found that. I think she, with the organization that she founded, many of her friends, with or without her asking, joined the effort and have carried it on. So I think that's the power of giving people an opportunity to do good, because I think most people do want to do good.
So Pavni, I'd like to, first of all, congratulate your family because, this achievement is something that...
Sachin, I can't hear you very clearly.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
So Pavni, I wanted to first congratulate you and your family for, having something to cherish for the time to come, because I think this award is a testament to how wonderful Bunbun was and how she influenced so many people's lives, and just like how you already described it. But I want to go a little bit into understanding, some of the things that made her so positive, because one of the things that I remember her being is she's one of the most positive people that I would meet. She would remember my kids even 10 years after she finished. They got out of kindergarten, and she would still remember them. And that's not usual. It's a talent which very few people have. And I think that's the effect Bunbun really had on people. And it was a very personal touch. It's not just about being kind and being, doing a lot of good things, because a lot of people do that. But to actually have a connect where people feel that there's a personal touch behind it, and there is a personal remembrance, which was real. I mean, she actually would know details, and she would actually remember things which you would be just surprised. So that kind of gave a very different dimension to this, and the testament to that really is that Bunbun got the most number of nominations for any of the award categories. It was by far the largest number of nominations. And I happened to sit with on the jury team as well, and I can just tell you very straightforward that it is one of the best moments of being a jury member, to see somebody coming through so clearly, because that there is nobody else who could have won that award. So for that year, that is. So I'm going to actually go back to you and ask you some of the things that you being the daughter obviously would see a different side. All of us saw a different side of Bunbun.
Right.
And it was mostly because of the kind of interaction that we had with her, because she did actually so many different things, right? It's not just one or two things. She was, she had she was in a lot of activities. So from what was your experience growing up, and let's say a few things about, that would just help our viewers to understand a little better.
Yeah. I think my mother had an amazing childhood. And I think that goes a long, long way in making her who she was. Her parents came from Pakistan, during partition, from what is now Pakistan. I never heard my grandparents complain. That generation of my grandparents faced a lot of difficulties. They left everything. They came to a city that they didn't know. Delhi was, a difficult place at that time because it was the seat of so much unrest. I never heard my grandparents complain. And I think both my grandparents had this very typical Punjabi, enjoying life. Like everything was about family and food and having a good time. And really, I think that really seeped into my mom. And several of you have met my mom's sister, who also lived in Jakarta for a few years. But my mom, her brother, and her sister really adopted that. They were all very positive people, all three of them. My mom and her siblings. And I think my mom just genuinely liked people. And I think when you genuinely like people, you're just engaging with them at a different level. You're not doing it to show people. You're not doing it because you have this agenda, like you said, Sachin, of, just helping people. I think she genuinely enjoyed people. She always had food in her fridge. People would be like, oh, we're driving by and we just drop by to see you. And some people would get irritated with that. But I think my mom genuinely enjoyed having people in the house all the time. And I think her positivity, I have to say, as I think about it, because I actually have thought about it a lot, like where did she get her positivity from? I think first it's from the way she grew up. She had a very loving, very abundant childhood. She's had wonderful friends growing up. Her parents really doted on her. She was the oldest daughter. She had a really good relationship with her brother and her sister, even though they moved away at a fairly young age. And I really think that, when you genuinely like people, then you give with an open heart. And I think one of the things about my mom that I have not been able to adopt, which I think is, sort of transcendental, is the fact that she didn't expect anything back. She would send someone fruit from her tree, but there wasn't an expectation that someone was going to send something back to her. She was like, kisi ne bhejna hai to bhejenge, nahi hai to theek hai. Like she did as a very one-way street. And I think when you do that, then there's no barter system involved. And I try and learn that. I think it's easier said than done. But I think that's really it. And her positivity, I really think came from, I really saw her, I think we all saw her positivity really when she got sick. And I believe, she was diagnosed in 2013 with breast cancer. And one of the things the oncologist said, which I thought was remarkable, is that he said, Bunbun, my I have lots of patients. My positive, upbeat patients do well, regardless of treatment. And my negative, fearful patients don't do well. And that says a lot for the for the importance of mental health and, how we can, in many ways, control our reaction to the situation. And I think Bunbun really made the best, if this is even possible, really made the best of the 8 years that she was ill. She couldn't work anymore. And so she turned all her energy into her community, her garden, really transformed her life in terms of her health and her habits. At the age of 62 or 63 when she was diagnosed, which is, it comes from a positive state of mind, that she was like, I'm going to do whatever I can in my capacity to, just fight this illness. And she was never in remission. She was always on treatment, but you couldn't tell for many, many years when you met her because she was so, like you said, so positive about it.
Yeah. So it's a great, ability to be overcoming your own adversity and not show it out.
Absolutely.
And that's a very important quality. And, we learn so many lessons from things that we see around us and as we go through life. And I think that's one thing that Bunbun has left an impression on everybody's minds about how, one should look at our own lives and see how we can best handle all the challenges that get thrown our way.
Right.
So I just, another curious question I had was, it's good that you gave the background about, how she was brought up, etc. Because it's really a telling story about, it is actually making a very positive scenario out of a lot of adversity, which comes from being relocated from a country and not having your roots, etc. And I'm very familiar with many such stories. And but having come to Jakarta, what are the things that really kept her in Jakarta? What do you think? Because she could have been anywhere. Like how a lot of Indians here want to go back to India at some point of time. The dream is always there. But what are the things that kind of kept her here? What do you think she loved about Indonesia?
If I had to put it down to two things, I would say the community, because she found amazing friends. And I don't think Bunbun was ever alone. Even in the last few months when she was not able to go out and she was, stuck at home because of COVID, and in a big way, I was adamant that she was not going to interact physically with people because there was no vaccine at that time. She had friends who would call her. She would be a part of a chanting group. So I would say the community was a very big part of her not wanting to, not so much not go back to India, more not leave Jakarta. She did not want to leave Jakarta because of the community. Yeah. And I would say, interestingly, her garden. I think her garden was such a big part of her life that, I tell my dad, I said, you can't leave this house because her garden is in this house. And of course, we can get another house with another garden, but this is the garden that she really poured her life into, because we actually moved into this house in Jakarta the year she was diagnosed with cancer. And she came to this house straight from Singapore. And because of her illness, she had to stop working. And I think one of the other things, speaking of positivity, that kept Bunbun really upbeat is that she loved working. This is extraordinary, and this goes back to her childhood and her upbringing. She was sent to one of the best boarding schools in India, Welham. She made sure that passed on to me and insisted that I go to boarding school. A lot of parents don't want to send their kids to boarding school because they feel I'm going to separate my child. And I think boarding school did for her what it did for me. It made us very independent. It made us responsible for finding our community, independent of our parents. So she went to a phenomenal boarding school. She went to a really great college. She went to Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. Bunbun actually has a master's degree, which is unusual for my mother's generation, because we didn't, support and uplift women, at least the way we do now. And so I think she really took everything that she was given And she loved working. She had worked from the day she left college. And working and loving what she was doing, I think really kept her very positive. My mother worked till I was 37 or 38. I never felt like she was missing. She would call and check on us and see what we were eating for lunch. She was a part of our homework. Um, she, like many Indian women, had two jobs. She worked outside the house, and she, I hope this will change it's changing with my generation, but she really, going back to pouring into people, I never felt like my mom was missing. She was always there. And that's really important I think when you give, somewhere along the line, you get back.
So what is that one?
Yeah.
So what would be the one quality that you feel you have inherited from her?
That I have inherited?
You have inherited.
I think the willingness to help people. I think I see, I don't have the quality where I can always give without expecting. I think that's miraculous. But I do think I don't know if I've inherited it naturally. I think I worked really hard to keep that in mind. So if I'm walking somewhere and I see someone homeless, instead of giving them money, I'll buy them food. I think that is something that has really, you see something all your life. Yeah. It hopefully seeps in. So
yeah. This is like, people who inspire other people, you pass it on. You pass certain qualities on to the people.
Absolutely.
So you get a multiplier effect. And I think, I would say that definitely of Bunbun, she has definitely been a multiplier effect in terms of inspiring other people to follow her in her image. Right. So I actually wanted to ask the last bit of this was more about how does things continue now with her foundation and her friends? Do you see any continuity in some of the initiatives that he had started? Are there any things that maybe the people can hear about and then probably raise their hands and join in and help to keep some of the activities ongoing? Of course, there is COVID now, so it may not be so easy. But what I mean is, it would be nice to find some of our viewers who might be interested in following up or joining hands with some of the initiatives that you did.
Absolutely, I think so. Yes, to all of that. I think she had started a charitable foundation, a charitable organization with the help of her friends, and that work continues. In fact, all through COVID, all through Ramzan, her friends who were a part of this organization have been donating and providing food. So I think that's really, I think Bunbun's spirit would be so happy to know that beyond the fact that she's being honored, that the work that she's put in for all of these years will continue. So I think that's amazing. And I really think if people can take a couple of lessons, one will be just find ways to help people. We can all do a little bit. Even if you can do something for one person, you've impacted that one person's life. But I also think the message, and I would say this to my mother, and I think she really started to believe it, is for women to look after themselves. I think we live in a culture where women put a gold star on themselves and other women put a gold star on women for not looking after themselves. And I can tell you, if you really love your family and if you really love your children and your community, the most important thing you can do is be here. And looking after yourself, going to the doctor, taking advantage of all the multiple preventive tests that we have to make sure that you can do whatever's in your power to be here and to be healthy. My mom, for all that she did, truly, this is a reality that didn't really get to enjoy fully the last few years of her life. There are many parts of our lives, my life and my brother's life, that she couldn't be a part of because she was so sick. And I think that's a really important message that I think she and I talked about. She was not very public about talking about her experience, but in the last couple of years, one of her hospitals had reached out to her. And she called me and she said, oh, they want me to talk about my cancer journey. And I said, you absolutely should, because people need to hear your struggle to be able to learn from that. And so I think it would make her really happy if even the people who will end up watching, the show will take a lesson to, especially women who are older than me, that generation will take a lesson to really, look after themselves, value themselves, not think that they always have to be doing, rest and sort of, rejuvenate.
I agree with you, Pavni, because she did this talk at the Siloam Hospital where
That's exactly right.
She shared her journey and she was absolutely fearless. I've met other women who have been going through their own personal challenges and they don't really share. But she was very open. She was very happy to share, so that if through her experience, if any one person could benefit, it would have meant so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so glad to hear you say that, Punamanti, because she was not very comfortable with that Siloam conversation because it was not her friends. It was, people she didn't know. And I said, that's the important thing. You don't know whose life you're going to touch. We talked about her script and and I said, you don't need a script. You just need to go on and be willing to be transparent. And I think she herself felt so good after she shared that, because I've said to her several times, I said, I want you to tell all of your friends to get a mammogram. I want you to tell all of your friends to go to the doctor at least once a year. And she had started doing that. And she got so much appreciation when she started talking about her own health that I think it really kind of helped her, get more comfortable with it.
So, I know it's been a very emotional time for you. We really appreciate the time you've taken here.
Thank you so much.
The purpose of us doing this entire thing is to honor her and to be able to celebrate and, let this be a great inspiration for the community, because I really feel, these are the moments that we cherish, and these are the people that have actually been pillars of building this community. And Bunbun is definitely out there. And this is, of course, the first year that we've done these awards. And it's actually an honor for the awards to be able to,
thank you so
give
much.
this to
That's so
Bunbun.
nice.
It's so deserving. And I think with that, I would give the stage back to Poonam.
Thank you,
Thank you so much, Sachin.
Yes.
Thank you, Pavani. I think we were all very, very touched by all the work that she has done. In fact, this has been a difficult year, and we have been. And when you mentioned that the community was there, even I remember getting messages where said that send a video message to Bunbun, so that it was there, and I can understand why Bunbun was so attached to the community here. And she has really, when you talked about her garden, we did a little walk through her garden where she showed her all the plants that she's planted.
I have that. I actually saved that video. My brother found the video and I was like, this is so, there was not, in Punamanti, in the 30 years that they've lived in Indonesia. And initially my brother and I would come twice a year because of boarding school and then because of college. And then over the last few years when she got sick, I would come more often. There was not a single trip that I would be there where she would not have people over for she called it a garden tour, but it wasn't just a garden tour. It was lunch and then the garden tour and then more food and then the whole day would go by. So initially I'd be like, I'm only here for a few days and you always do this. But then I kind of gave up because I was like, it's going to continue whether I complain or not. But I realized how much joy it gave her to have all of you in her garden, like talking about the fruit. And so many people have told me that they have a tree in their garden from her garden, which is, the best kind of legacy. So, yeah.
So it is indeed a legacy that she has left behind. and a lot of inspiration. She's truly extraordinary. Thank you
Thank you
so much,
so much.
Bhavani, for joining us and sharing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Punamanti.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you so much. So
Poonam,
this
you
is,
can
we will be,
cut the recording. Yeah. If you
yeah.
stop the
So we will
recording,
be continuing with these sessions with all the extraordinary award winners. And we have a profile about them on Indo-Indians. So please do visit Indoindians.com and read the profiles, and do send us your comments, your feedback, and we look forward to interacting with you. Thank you.